Did you know that in Alabama it is illegal to wear a fake mustache in church? That is an actual law. Also in Alabama, it is illegal to have an ice cream cone in your back pocket. I don't know why anybody would want to have an ice cream cone in their back pocket, but it is against the law in Alabama. In Baltimore, Maryland, it is illegal to take a lion to the movies. In North Carolina, it is illegal to hold more than 2 sessions of bingo per week. I guess they had a real problem with people getting wild with bingo in North Carolina. And in Zion, Illinois, it is illegal to give a cat or dog a lighted cigar. So if your pets want to smoke, I guess they have to light it themselves. Those are some ridiculous laws that are still on the books. And, many people think that being a Christian is all about following a bunch of ridiculous laws similar to the ones that I just mentioned. In fact, one of the main reasons why many people don't want to become Christian is because they think that if they become a Christian, they're going to have to follow a bunch of stupid rules that will make their life boring. Many people view God as this cosmic killjoy, the fun sponge who wants to suck all the fun out of their life by giving them a bunch of rules to live by. People don't want to follow Jesus because they think that following Jesus, they will lose their freedoms. They're going to have to live by God's rules that are going to make their lives miserable. But that isn't the case at all. It's true that when you decide to become a Christian, you are agreeing to live life God's way, and God has rules or commands that He wants you to follow. But when you live life God's way, you don't lose your freedom. You actually gain freedom in the things that matter the most, right? Obeying God increases the freedom that matters the most. In fact, when God created the world exactly the way He wanted, there's only one rule. In Genesis, God said, hey, you're free to eat from any tree in the garden that you want. The only thing you can't do is eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now you may be thinking, why would God make any rule at all? Well, the reason why God gave them that rule was because that one rule represented free will. God was saying that in obeying this rule, you are agreeing to let me be your God. By following that one rule, they were in essence saying, God, you are the ultimate authority in my life. And so the way that they demonstrated that God was the ultimate authority in their life was by obeying the one rule that God gave them. If they disobeyed that rule, they were declaring that God was not the ultimate authority in their life, that they didn't need God in their life, and that they could, in essence, be their own God, that they could be the ultimate authority in their life. Now, why is it such a big deal that God be the ultimate authority in our lives and that we submit to Him? Well, it's because God is all about your freedom, and He knows that we can't be free apart from living in submission to Him. Now, that may sound like the opposite of freedom, but living in submission to God is the key to experiencing freedom. Take, for example, this goldfish, right? What if this fish started to think that he isn't really free because he is constricted by this bowl? And so he decided that he wanted to be free from this bowl, and he jumps out of the bowl. Is that fish going to experience freedom? Well, if this fish decides that he wants to be free from the restrictions of this bowl and jumps out, he is not going to experience freedom. He is going to experience death. See, the reality is that this bowl is what actually causes the fish to experience life and freedom. And that's exactly what God's rules do. They don't restrict us. They are the boundaries that enable us to experience the freedom and abundant life that God has for us. See, God's rules don't diminish our joy and peace. They lead to joy and peace. Living under God's authority, according to God's rules, is how we experience the freedom that matters most. See, when God had the world that He wanted, there was only one rule, but Adam and Eve disobeyed the one rule that God had given them. They chose not to have God as the ultimate authority in their life. They decided that they wanted to be God of their own lives, and instead of experiencing freedom, they experienced death, right? Pain, sickness, disease, and suffering were the consequences of their decision. They were like the fish jumping out of the bowl. They jumped out because they thought it would bring freedom, but it brought death. And so they had to learn the hard way that obeying God increases the freedom that matters the most. And then when you read further in the Bible and you get to the book of Exodus, you see that God's people were in slavery in Egypt and they called out to God for help. God delivers them from over 400 years of slavery in Egypt, and he gives them 10 rules or 10 commandments. And so God's rules were not designed to lead us into a relationship with God, but they were designed to help us experience freedom in our relationship with God, right? The Israelites, they already had a relationship with God. So the rules were not the means by which they achieved their relationship with God. The rules were how they experienced freedom in their relationship with God. Let's say that you have a child and you want your child to be able to run around in the yard. You want them to have the freedom to run and play, so you put up a fence. Why? Because you realize that they can't run around and be free without a fence, because they might run into the street and get hit by a car or injured. And so you don't put up that fence to restrict their freedom. You put up that fence so that they can experience freedom. The fence provides the boundaries so that they can be free. And that is exactly what God was doing in giving the 10 Commandments. He is giving rules that act as a fence to keep us safe so that we can experience freedom. And as long as you are living within those boundaries, there is freedom. See, and it's the same way with all of God's rules, with all of God's commands, right? God gave us rules, commands, principles to live by so that we can experience freedom. James 1:25 says this, "But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in what he does." See, here it calls God's laws, his rules, the perfect law of liberty. All right. Another translation calls it the law that gives freedom, or the law that sets you free. See, God's laws don't take away our freedom. They actually set us free to live the kind of life that we truly desire. See, God is all about your freedom. And so God gives you rules, he gives you laws, because he knows that in keeping them, you will gain freedom that matters most. That in keeping God's laws and following his precepts and principles, you will experience the blessed life. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor, smash that like button for me, share this video with a friend, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. And if you haven't already yet, subscribe to this channel. Click on that bell so that you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching, and remember, if it's not good, God's not done.